Oh, right. Yeah. Let's carry on with this doc. Let's go.
This transfer occurred in 1974 when Bilderberg attendee Pierre Trudeau was Prime Minister and Trilateral Commission member Gerald Bouy was Governor of the Bank of Canada. It's so sad that Canadians get more excited about hockey than they do over all the federal taxes that goes towards paying the interest on loans to the Canadian government. These loans were made by bankers on credit created out of thin air. Just like the United States, the Bank of Canada issues less than 5% of Canada's money, while over 95% is created as bookkeeping entries by Canadian banks through fractional reserve banking.
When a bank gives you a mortgage, which literally means a death pledge, or a loan, they don't actually give you money. They click a key on a computer and generate the fake money out of thin air. They don't actually have it in their bank vaults. Broadly speaking, all new money comes out of a bank in the form of loans. As loans are debt, then under the present system, all money is debt. Under the present system, all money is debt. Under the present system, all money is debt.
Led by John Maynard Keynes in the 1930s, socialism emerged in democratic nations as yet another way to transfer more money to the banks under the guise of providing public programs. Keynes was a director of the British Eugenics Society. He was also a member of the Fabian Socialists, a semi-secret society whose logo featured a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Biblical.
The Fabian Socialists wanted to accomplish the goals of socialism not through violence and revolution, but through propaganda and legislation, so there would be no resistance to their plans. The word socialism was replaced with glowing terms like welfare and workers' rights. Keynes' main idea was that when a nation was in recession or depression, the government should intervene by relaxing banking regulations and printing currency. The fact that government programs only transfer currency to the banks through increased government debt was conveniently overlooked. A trio of financial institutions emerged around World War II to dominate international finance. The Bank for International Settlements, or BIS, was established in Basel, Switzerland in 1930 to serve as a bank for central banks. While originally designed to handle German reparations for World War I, the BIS board of directors included top Nazi officials between 1933 and 1945 who would deposit money for the Gestapo. The BIS was supposed to be liquidated after 1945 because of this embarrassment, but it never was. The unelected and unaccountable Bank for International Settlements holds secret bi-monthly meetings in the Tower of Basel to determine the economic fate of its member nations. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, was established in Washington in 1948.
Of all the things I've watching lately of people, different professionals and different people from different things, or like the Western world's problem literally all come after World War II. It's funny that we all look at World War II as, well, this is this terrible thing. But in actuality, all of literally everybody, it doesn't matter what I'm listening to about, whether it's immigration, whether it's things like the NHS, like you said, the welfare system, like all these different things, and where it, like, cover ups of things, it doesn't matter what, yeah, what profession you're in and studying, what, like, it always goes back. I think I did 2 podcasts last night in the UK about separate subjects, and they both said it started around either 1945 or 1948. Like this, it's like, yeah, it's funny how we get told to focus so much on World War II, and look what the evil can happen from World War II, and then actually our downfall and the elite's rise was after the Germans was defeated.
Restore the world's international payment system after World War II. The IMF, now with 188 member nations, acts as a sister organization to the World Bank. The IMF receives membership dues in the form of currency from its member nations and issues special drawing rights, or SDRs, when it feels it is necessary. SDRs are a digital currency created from an index of currencies from member nations. The World Bank was established in Washington in 1944 to reduce poverty. Funding for World Bank loans comes from a small amount of seed money plus the far greater amount of credits and promises from the governments of member nations. The World Bank enters into commercial loan markets and borrows large amounts of currency at very low rates, which governments that are labeled too high of a credit risk can't get.
Here's another thing with the whole borrowing thing as well. Like, even my dad says that. When he was growing up, there was no, you got a washing machine on tick, that's what we call it, where you get it and you pay off in installments. Another thing that didn't exist before the Second World War. It come in afterwards. Like my dad says, you had what you could buy, basically, which meant you had nothing. His mum washed clothes with a, do you know what I mean, a churn thing, and do you know what I mean, old school style, not with a washing machine. All these things was luxuries, but now everyone will move in somewhere and get everything on tick, basically, and pay off everything in installments over time.
It then offers loans to these nations at a slightly higher, yet still attractive rate, pocketing the difference between the rates. The World Bank typically takes money from economies through taxation to pay for loans that build large government projects, which are often soaked in corruption. If these projects fail, then the World Bank forces public policy changes on debtor nations, like a reduction in the minimum wage or an increase in petroleum or utility prices to recover its investment. In summary, the World Bank promotes profits for the bankers and socialism for the masses. The IMF manages SDR commerce between nations.
I have to say, you got to look it up. There's a Godfather clip that was deleted. Funny, I think the Godfather as well has a lot of this kind of stuff written into it. But there's a bit where, Michael's daughter brings her fiance, and Michael says, "What'd you do for a living?" And he's like, "Oh," and he like gets a bit all funny. He's like, and then he kind of he gets it out of him that he works for his dad, and he's like, "You come from money?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Don't ever be ashamed that you've come from money or that you got money." And he's like, "That's a trick of the rich. That's to trick the poor into staying poor. That you should be ashamed of having money, right?" And you see it today. It's like that's people's answer to it. Just tax the rich, and because they don't have any idea of how actual economy works. Look at like when our country did it to rock stars. Exile on Main Street, the Rolling Stones album. Everyone fled. Even people like Pete Doherty did. He lives in France because the tax is too high. You earn so much, they just tax it. It's pointless. Like people say, it's not worth earning over 40 grand a year, because what you pay in tax over that, you might as well be under that. It's like,
while the World Bank manages SDR loans to nations. The world switched to a new financial standard during World War II, when America had 2/3 of the world's monetary gold, and Europe was flooded with American dollars. With the exceptions of Pearl Harbor and the Aleutian Islands, America was territorially untouched by both wars. Gold flowed to America as collateral for the dollars that America was loaning Europe. The Bretton Woods Financial Agreement of July 1944, signed by 44 Allied nations, stated that allied currencies would be valued at fixed rates against the US dollar, and that the US dollar would be valued at $35 per ounce of gold. For a short time, the US dollar became as good as gold.
Good evening, Mr. Torrance. Good evening.
It's funny, we have a bank called Lloyd's. Also, going back before the Shining clips, which I will say as well, like I say, Godfather especially, the third one. I think the third one, Immobiliare, I think is the Vatican organisation Michael's trying to overthrow in that, and it's to do with the Vatican and all of this. Immobiliare or something like that it's called. I mean, how close is that to Illuminati? It's like just the same syllables, just a little bit, yeah, jazzed. But going back to the 40 whatever nations, so if that's a cartel, if that's true. So loaning the foreign allies money at a fixed rate, that's illegal. Like, that is illegal. Like, say ice cream companies can't come together and all say, from now on, ice cream is $5 and none of us are going to sell ice cream cheaper than that. That's illegal. That is literally what a cartel is, when everybody comes together and says, fixes a price in the free market. That's a cartel, and it's illegal. Like, so to fix the price, that is literally a cartel, what they have got together.
What'll it be?
I'm awfully glad you asked me that, Lloyd, because I just happen to have 2 20s and 2 10s right here in my wallet. Say, Lloyd, it seems I'm temporarily light. How's my credit in this joint anyway?
Your credit's fine, Mr. Torrance.
That's swell. I like you, Lloyd. I always liked you.
It's also funny that the conspiracy thing that always gets pulled out about The Shining is the moon landing. That he was talking about faking the moon landing and the moon landing footage. I think Stanley Kubrick did actually film the moon landing footage in a studio. And he was telling you in that. It's funny that you don't really see this side of it, but yeah, this is so clearly obvious.
The assassination of President Kennedy had financial implications, but not in the way that many people think. Kennedy's obscure Executive Order 11110 has been mistakenly pointed to as proof that the president was shot on behalf of bankers. Many researchers claim that this EO authorized the issuance of silver certificates, which would deny bankers their usual interest payments on the issuance of currency. When one reads the executive order referred to in EO 11110, the reality is just the opposite. Previously, the president could have issued silver certificates on his own authority. Kennedy's EO delegated that authority to the Secretary of the Treasury, who happened to be from a well-known and powerful banking family at the time. This corrected picture is blurred by the fact that the Treasury did issue United States notes in the same year as EO 11110. The remaining confusion is cleared when one realizes that silver certificates, which Kennedy never issued, are promises to deliver silver, and that United States notes, like Federal Reserve notes, are promises to deliver taxes and inflation. While the reasons for the Kennedy assassination are speculative, the financial effects of this event are clear. Lyndon Johnson stripped silver from coinage, advanced socialism through the Great Society programs, and plunged America into another war. Throughout the 1960s,
I was thinking that as well, because you see rich people say it. And poor people dress in expensive clothes. Rich people do. I mean, celebrities do, but that's because they get it given to them. Yeah, but rich people, actual rich people, don't waste money on expensive clothes because they don't need to. It's only poor people that buy expensive clothes because they want the world to see them as not poor. If you are rich, it doesn't matter what the world sees you if they see you as poor. In fact, that's better. That they don't know that you're actually rich. Like it's only poor people that put up the illusion that they're rich.
the United States increased its spending on social programs and war. Many nations, led by France under Charles de Gaulle, realized that America did not have the gold to back up the dollars it was spending, so they started to ask for their gold back.
Le fait que beaucoup d'États acceptent par principe des dollars au même titre que de l'or pour les règlements des différences qui existent à leur profit dans la balance des paiements américaine, ce fait entraîne les Américains à s'endetter et à s'endetter gratuitement vis-à-vis de l'étranger, car ce qu'ils lui doivent, ils le lui payent, tout au moins en partie, avec des dollars qu'il ne tient qu'à eux d'émettre. Nous estimons nécessaire que les échanges internationaux soient établis comme c'était le cas avant les grands malheurs du monde, sur une base monétaire indiscutable et qui ne porte la marque d'aucun pays en particulier. Quelle base? En vérité, on ne voit pas qu'il puisse y avoir réellement de critères, d'étalons autres que l'or.
The United States lost 50% of its gold from 1959 to 1971. On August 15th, 1971, President Nixon announced that the world's most highly traded currencies were tied to the US dollar and that the US dollar was tied to nothing.
I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. The United States has always been and will continue to be a forward-looking and trustworthy trading partner.
the American dollar continued to be used as the world's reserve currency because of the size of the American economy, but something had to be done to restore confidence in this currency. During the OPEC oil crisis of 1973, Henry Kissinger approached King Faisal of Saudi Arabia and made him an offer he couldn't refuse. In exchange for Saudi Arabia lifting the oil embargo and reinvesting a percentage of its profits back into the United States, America would buy a percentage of its oil from Saudi Arabia and offer it military protection. The deal hinged on Saudi Arabia selling its oil exclusively in US dollars. Saudi Arabia accepted, and the rest of the OPEC nations followed in 1975. The US dollar went from a gold standard.
And this is where America and the UK and the West got flooded with Islam.
To an oil standard.
But to be fair, if it wasn't for the oil, Islam would have died a long time ago. But the fact that there is incredibly wealthy Muslims through oil, the religion can keep going because they can keep paying nut jobs to do crazy shit, basically.
4 years. For the first time ever, the value of the world's currencies began to float against the US dollar, which would itself change in value. This marks the birth of the foreign exchange market, or Forex, where now around $4 trillion worth of currency gets traded daily. Beginning with America and Britain in 1979, nation after nation buckled under the demands of neoliberalism, which meant cuts to government spending, lower taxes, deregulation of industry, and greatly increased interest rates. Capital flowed into American bonds and other assets to earn great returns on very high interest rates. These rates made loans to third world nations impossible to pay back. Paul Volcker succeeded in doing what he had been sent by the Rockefellers to do: keep the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. America's exports sagged because they were too expensive due to the strengthened US dollar, and the Third World was held in perpetual debt with high interest rates and low demand for its exports into America in a feedback loop. Neoliberalism was really neocolonialism. By 1982, tax relief was provided for speculative forms of real estate investment, and interest rates were lowered. Wall Street won again as money flowed in from around the world to take advantage of the highly valued dollar and speculative gains in real estate and stocks. The price of oil was then driven down, unleashing an additional surge of capital into Wall Street. Banks went directly into real estate lending for the first time. When the jackpot popped, 747 savings and loans banks failed, profits were privatized, CIA drug money was laundered, and over $500 billion in losses were socialized. The stock market crash of October 1987 signaled the end of the artificial advantage that the petrodollar, neocolonialism, and deregulation gave Wall Street. Money, however, never sleeps. It speculated even more wildly, crashing the Japanese stock market in 3 years, sending the nation into a depression which it has never recovered from. The neoliberalism of Friedman and Volcker was advanced by Alan Greenspan. Greenspan was chairman of the Federal Reserve from August 1987 to January 2006. This means that Greenspan presided over the 1987 stock market crash, the 1998 collapse of long-term capital management, the bursting of the dot-com bubble in 2000, and the development of the mortgage crisis until 2006. Greenspan used each...
This is like John Wedger in his child abuse series, where it's always like, in our country you got different child abuse cases, and like all the children that got murdered, and all the autopsies are done by the same person. Like it's always the same people overlooking things. Like always, it's like it's a dead giveaway that
this to advance an agenda of market deregulation, risk globalization, and loss socialization. After the 1987 crash, Greenspan pumped huge amounts of Federal Reserve notes into the stock market. This signaled a new idea that many large Wall Street firms were too big to fail. A growing culture of impunity began to develop, along with delusions of grandeur through futures and options.
You had the authority to prevent irresponsible lending practices that led to the subprime mortgage crisis. You were advised to do so by many others, and now our whole economy is paying its price. Do you feel that your ideology pushed you to make decisions that you wish you had not made?
I found a flaw. I don't know how significant or permanent it is, but I've been very distressed by that fact. But if I may I just finish an answer to the question previously?
You found a flaw in the reality.
A flaw in the model that I perceived is the critical functioning structure that defines how the world works, so to speak.
Futures contracts allowed farmers to protect themselves by committing merchants to buying a crop at a set price when the seeds are being planted. The farmer gets a price which can't sink, and the merchant gets a ceiling above which the price can't rise. By signing a futures contract, farmers and merchants have hedged their bets. An option is a kind of futures contract. The buyer of an option has the right to say, buy a barrel of oil for $120 in a year's time. If the price of oil rises to $150 per barrel, then the option has made a profit of $30. If the price of oil holds or declines, buyers are under no obligation to carry through the deal. All buyers do is write off the cost of the option itself. You're not really buying or selling anything. You're making a bet on the price of something going up or down.
Yeah, we'll pause there. Yeah. This is as well, I watched this after get a name. It was great. It's a woman from our country. I think she said she got a podcast, but I saw her on a podcast talking about, well, all the madness going on in the world, but talking about right-wing people or right-leaning people, even centre-right people, and economists especially, they can't see the world in anything else other than economy. Not all conservatives, obviously, but like that guy said in the thing of he saw a flaw in how he saw the world. But this is how these people do it. It's like even someone like Thomas Sowell, who no one puts him as an evil, controlling dictator, but you can see by how he describes groups of people, he describes them in their economic placing in the world, because that's how he sees the world. He's an economist, and that's the trouble. If you get two people, that's where the left comes in. Even though I don't like the left as it is now, the left is there to remind the right that they're dealing with human beings still. You can't just reduce people to their economic profit loss ratio when you're dealing with a human being. It's like the left has to be there for that, but instead the left is saying no, what we should be doing is castrating children and giving them hormone blockers. Yeah, that's the world we live in these days. But yeah, that's this part. Sweet.